Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Janna Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Janna Vallabha Girivaradari Yashoda Nandana Braja Chana Ranchana Yashoda Nandana Braja Chana Ranchana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajrakacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Shrimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajrakacharya Ashtotara Shatashi Shrimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sekaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Ganga Yamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Nugovardhan Dham Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this morning we were reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 30, the activities of the Prachetas. We're on text 21. So if everybody could please repeat after me. Maitreya Vacha Evam Pruvanam Purushartha Bhajanam Janardanam pranjalaya prachetasa tad darshana dvasta tamo rajo mala giragnam gadaya sarittamam vacha evam bhuvanam purushartha bhajanam Janardanam pranjalaya prachetasaha tadarshana dvasta tamora jomala giragnan gadaya gira grinan gadaya sarittamam Maitrevacha evam brahmanam purushartha bhajanam Janardanam pranjalaya prachetasaha tadarshana dvasta tamora jomala giragnan gad Okay. Girag green nun gadaya sarittamam Gri nun Maitrevacha evam bhuvanam purushartha bhajanam Janardanam pranjalaya prachetasaha tadarshana dvasta tamora jomala giragri nan gadaya sarittamam Word by word. Maitreya said, Evam, thus, Bruvanam, speaking. Purusha Artha, of the ultimate goal of life. Bhajanam, the bestower. Jana Arjana, Jana Arjanam, who takes away all the disadvantages of the devotee. Pranjalayaha, with folded hands. Prachetasaha, the Pracheta brothers. Tat, him. Darshana, by seeing. Dvasta, dissipated. Tamaha, of darkness. Rajaha, of passion. Malaha, whose contamination. Kira, with a voice. Agrinan, offered prayers. Gadgadaya, faltering. Sarittamam, unto the greatest of all friends. Translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The great sage Maitreya said, after the personality of Godhead spoke thus, the Prachetas began to offer him prayers. The Lord is the bestower of all success in life and is the supreme benefactor. He is also the supreme friend who takes away all miserable conditions experienced by a devotee. In a faltering voice, due to ecstasy, the Prachetas began to offer prayers. They were purified by the presence of the Lord, who was before them face to face. Purport. The Lord is herein described as Purushartha Bhajanam, the bestower of the ultimate goal of life. Whatever success we want in life can be attained by the mercy of the Lord. Since the Prachetas had already attained the Lord's mercy, they were no longer subject to the contamination of the material modes. The material modes dissipated from them just as the darkness of night immediately dissipates when the sun rises. Because the Lord appeared before them, naturally all the contaminations of the material qualities of Rajas and Tamas completely disappeared. Similarly, when an unalloyed devotee chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, he is also purified of all material contamination because the name of the Lord and the Lord are identical. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 17, Shinvatam Sukata Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtana Shridyantasto Hibhadrani Vidanoti Sarit Satam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, supersoul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. The holy name of the Lord is the Lord himself. If one chants and hears, he becomes purified. Gradually all material contamination disappears. The Prachetas were already purified due to the Lord's presence before them, and they could therefore offer the proper prayers with folded hands. In other words, as soon as devotees are engaged in devotional service, they become transcendental to all material contamination immediately, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Sagunan samatityaitan brahmabhuyaya kalpate. Sometimes the devotees are dissatisfied due to their not seeing the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally. When the Prachetas saw the Supreme Lord personally present, their unhappiness vanished. Om Meganatipidandasya Giranjana Shalakya Chakshulan Meditamnena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukam Karidvachalam Pangam Langai Tegademya Kripadamaham Vande Shri Gurundanitanam Vansha Kapadribishcha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Can I read the translation again? The great sage Maitreya said, After the personality of Godhead spoke thus, the Prachetas began to offer him prayers. The Lord is the bestower of all success in life and is the supreme benefactor. He is also the supreme friend who takes away all miserable conditions experienced by a devotee. In a faltering voice, due to ecstasy, the Prachetas began to offer prayers. They were purified by the presence of the Lord, who was before them face to face. So this verse Srila Prabhupada's quoting in purport, Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 17, Srinvatam Sakata Krishna, is a most important verse. So I thought we could just read some of the purport here of this verse. Srinvatam Sakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Shridyantasto Hibhadrani Vidanoti Saritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, Supersoul in everyone's heart, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee, who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are in themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Purport. Messages of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, are non-different from him. Whenever, therefore, offenseless hearing and glorification of God are undertaken, it is to be understood that Lord Sri Krishna is present, there in the form of transcendental sound, which is as powerful as the Lord personally. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his Shikshashtaka declares clearly that the holy name of the Lord has all the potencies of the Lord, and that he has endowed his innumerable names with the same potency. There is no rigid fixture of time, and anyone can chant the holy name with attention and reverence at his convenience. The Lord is so kind to us that he can be present before us personally in the form of transcendental sound. But unfortunately, we have no taste for hearing and glorifying the Lord's name and activities. We have already discussed developing a taste for hearing and chanting the holy sound. It is done through the medium of service to the pure devotee of the Lord. So that was the previous verse, 1 to 16. Shushu sho shadadanasya vasudeva kata ruchihi syan mahat sevya vibra punya tirtana shevana. O twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service, one gains an affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. So one gains a taste for the holy name of Krishna, for the Bhagavatam, for hearing the messages of Vasudeva by service to the... The Lord is reciprocally respondent to his devotees. When he sees that a devotee is completely sincere in getting admittance to the transcendental service of the Lord and has thus become eager to hear about him, the Lord acts from within the devotee in such a way that the devotee may easily go back to him. The Lord is more anxious to take us back into his kingdom than we can desire. Most of us do not desire at all to go back to Godhead. Only a very few men want to go back to Godhead. But anyone who desires to go back to Godhead, Sri Krishna helps in all respects. One cannot enter into the kingdom of God unless one is perfectly cleared of all sins. The material sins are products of our desires to lord it over material nature. It is very difficult to get rid of such desires. Women and wealth are very difficult problems for the devotee making progress on the path back to Godhead. Many stalwarts in the devotional line fell victim to these allurements and thus retreated from the path of liberation. But when one is helped by the Lord himself, the whole process becomes as easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord. And here mentioning many stalwarts in devotional line fell victim to these allurements, right? Women and wealth, and but it could be anything. There's so many different allurements in this material world that people fall victim to, and then they retreat. Not like a spiritual retreat, chanting the holy names, but they retreat from the path of liberation. So yeah, we have to be careful. Just like in Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's time, so many young men would join his temples to live as brahmacharis in the temple. And so many times, they would, just like even now, I mean, as devotees have brought up many times in classes, or at least I've heard in classes, that for young men even nowadays to join in India, it's difficult sometimes, because the parents, they don't want that. They want their children to, right, plug into the educational system and to, right, be very successful materially. And okay, you join a temple, it's that's all thrown out the window, practically, at least for some time. And they don't, yeah. So anyway, so many families would come to get their boy back, to bring him back home. And they'd be crying and trying to. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he would sometimes send these young men to other temples while this was happening. Their families, they send them to other temples. Sometimes they said they would hide. He would hide them, and he would tell the brahmacharis, he would tell the devotees that these cries are the cries of Maya, trying to send you to hell, he would say. And he said, don't be bewildered by them. And then some people, and then it is explained that some people think, oh, this is very callous, this is very, because this is very harsh, the family wants their boy back. Isn't this harsh? But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would say, well, it is callous if I give the boy back, that's callous. That is wrong, that is harsh, because this person has come to surrender to Krishna, so I should give him full facility to do that. So it means that Maya may come in so many forms. There's like all types of tricks. And if one thing doesn't work, then there's another thing, another way to try, right? Like if you're trying to, like with salesmen or something, if one pitch doesn't work, then they'll use another pitch, or they'll try to, somehow or other make the sale. So yeah. So therefore, we have to take shelter of the holy name of Krishna. And then, Prabhupada says, but when one is helped by Krishna himself, the whole process becomes as easy as anything by the divine grace of the Lord. It becomes easy. So it means that so many allurements may come, but it becomes easy to pass those. We don't become bewildered by them. We see them for what they are. To become restless in the contact of women and wealth is not an astonishment, because every living being is associated with such things from remote time, practically immemorial. And it takes time to recover from this foreign nature. But if one is engaged in hearing the glories of the Lord, gradually he realizes his real position. By the grace of God, such a devotee gets sufficient strength to defend himself from this state of disturbances. And gradually all disturbing elements are eliminated from his mind. So there's a very beautiful section of the Srimad Bhagavatam here. So many verses in this second chapter. Worth memorizing and studying and trying to understand and preach. So when we're discussing this idea of having a pure heart, yeah, it's important. It's very important because to discuss it and to develop or to reawaken or to remove the contamination covering our real consciousness, Krishna consciousness. And we see that nowadays the need for purity is disappearing. The need for it. In other words, people don't see the need. They don't even see that it's... They don't see any value in it. They don't see that... They even try to say that it's... Yeah, what is it? Want to pass him the mic? I'll let Vijay's voice be broadcasted.
Just follow to be wise, where ignorance is bliss.
Yes. So people, they think, oh, impure consciousness, pure consciousness. What's the difference? I mean, in other words, people are having a hard time understanding or seeing the value of being moral, for example, basic moral principles. And this is causing a lot of philosophical people, or a lot of moral people, or a lot of religious people, spiritual people, great pain, and it's actually, they're seeing this as insane. They're seeing it as crazy. Because you throw morals out, you throw all of these different principles by which humans are meant to operate on out the window, and then what do you have? Like Prabhupada would say, you just have polished animalism. And like one time I saw a t-shirt, and this guy was wearing this t-shirt, and it said, "I am my ancestors' worst nightmare." In other words, I'm such a pig, I'm such a immoral rascal that I am my ancestors' worst nightmare. Now someone may say, well, I mean, your ancestors, I mean, it's kind of old-fashioned and they were backwards, right? They didn't know about so many modern things, right? How to live, how to be happy. Just backwards. People may say that. Now, of course, the ancestors will say, you guys are backwards. But yeah, but who is backwards? Now someone may argue that the ancestors, in certain ways, yeah, maybe someone could argue that they were backwards. Or someone can argue that they're backwards in certain ways. But certain general principles by which, even in this country, America, and so many throughout the world, people would operate on moral principles and so on, religious principles, they were good. And they had good results. And it's not that they were like bound to certain ethnicities or bound to certain political parties and so on. They're just good. They're just good principles to live by. And nowadays people, yeah, they just want to throw it out. Yeah, well, it's kind of doesn't really matter. Well, if it doesn't really matter so much, why is there, despite everybody's cries for just dismantling all types of religious principles and so on, then why is there so much chaos in the world? And it's not stopping. It's just it's continuing, and it's getting stronger and stronger and stronger. Why is that? Because they're throwing these things out. And yeah, sometimes they like to claim, oh well, it's just these are yeah. Anyways, and they're trying to equate just barbarianism. They're trying to equate polished animalism. They're trying to equate just insanity with morality, with religious principles, with sanity, with just goodness, with the ultimate good. They're trying to equate them both. In other words, you just do whatever you want, and I do whatever I want, and you don't bother me, I don't bother you. And yeah. Of course they don't go by that, but they may say that. Just like Srila Prabhupada would say that, because people they'll say, okay, well, just, it's your freedom of choice. You could do what you want, even if it's considered immoral in some people's eyes. You could do what you want. But there's a certain line that even those people won't cross. Of course, some people will try to cross them, but you could think of really terrible things to do to humans, to do to the world, to do to nature, that even these people will say, okay, that's a little bit too much. But then, how far do humans want to take it, right? How far do modern or how far do postmodern humans want to take it? Them crossing the lines of morality in the name of, okay, well, everything's the same. You do your thing, I do my thing. Ultimately, it's just like, what is that within us, within human beings? There's a certain, conscience? Is that what it is? Conscience. Now, of course, if someone's not psychopath, but a sociopath, then that conscience becomes numb. It becomes, can't hear it. But pushing the bounds of immorality or morality or actions to a certain point means people trying to do whatever they want to a certain point. Again, even those people at one point their conscience will kick in, or the collective conscience will kick in and say, okay, that's a little bit too much. You're taking it too far. But still, the philosophical minded, the religious minded will say that at present we're taking it too far. The society is taking it too far into the realm of immorality. And it's not all the same. That's the problem. People think it's all the same. It's not all the same. I mean, Prabhupada points out in the Bhagavatam purport that in particular in particular time, in particular places, they have a tradition that they will I don't know if Srila Prabhupada says they'll kill their grandfather and then eat him. Prabhupada says they'll have a Sunday feast. Or if he says that they wait for him to die and then they eat him. But whatever the case is, they eat their grandfather. They kill him. They hunt him, yeah. And Prabhupada says they have a Sunday feast. Prabhupada says that. It's a Sunday feast. Now, just looking at that example, it's, people say, oh, okay, well, if that's what they want to do, then, that's what they do. But there is right and there is wrong, and this is coming from God. This is coming from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Right? Dharman tu shakshat bhagavat pranitam. These principles, religious, moral principles, are coming from God. And when man or when women or when people of this world try to come up with all types of man-made, woman-made, human-made laws, then it just turns into chaos. And that's what we're seeing going on. And people are wondering why. And in this way, it becomes like it becomes, Prabhupada would say sometimes, and I think he says in one purpose, he says a dungeon of demons, a civilization, a dungeon of demons. And of course, nowadays people would say, oh, well, why demons, devotees, even this is, right? Everybody's, what do you mean demons and devotees? They don't like that either. Srila Prabhupada told Kirtanananda, brahmachari at the time, he told him that, because Kirtanananda, he didn't like so much Prabhupada using this word demon. This is in the Hare Krishna Explosion by Hayagriva Prabhu, wonderful book. But Kirtananda didn't like Prabhupada using this word demon so much. And yeah, we see this nowadays, people. But Prabhupada said, until you see the difference between the devotees and the demons, he said, you can make very little advancement. He said, very difficult to make advancement. Maybe even Prabhupada said, I don't know, you can't make any advancement. But we have to understand this point, that there is demoniac culture and there is divine culture. There is a difference. But those influenced by demoniac nature, they don't know, right? What is to be done, what is not to be done. There's a lot of confusion, right? Sworn to unclean acts. There's a lot of confusion. So a devotee, a aspiring devotee, a member of the International Society of Krishna Consciousness, we're not afraid of admitting, yes, I have an impure heart. And aside from us being not afraid to admit we have an impure heart, we understand that there's a difference between an impure heart and a pure heart. There is a difference. That it's not all the same. There are such things as saints and sinners. Or there are such things as right and wrong and so on. But now people, a lot of people, they want to try to glorify their polished animalism, or their polished whatever. They want to glorify the vulgarness of postmodern culture, so-called society, as they want to try to explain it philosophically. They want to try to glorify it as something great, but it cannot be. You can explain it philosophically, but by nature it is illogical. It doesn't add up philosophically, and it's not worth glorifying because it's just animalism. It's just not worth glorifying. And this is spread all over on every single social media platform, practically. All over, all types of videos, what people see, what people hear. Just it's spread all over, in the most in the most degraded ways. And I don't want to get into any examples because I don't want to gross everybody out here. But so this without understanding these different points of the difference between a pure heart, impure heart, and so on, then a person remains bewildered, and they don't really see the need to become God conscious. They don't see the need to surrender to God. They don't see the need to follow moral principles. They just, whatever floats your boat, right? Whatever titillates your senses. And therefore, you could say people are lighting, or people are pouring gasoline on their own fire of their own personal fire of suffering. You know, they're burning in a fire of this suffering, anxiety, and so on, and they're the ones pouring the gas on it, trying to get relief at the same time. Therefore, we say it's insanity. So having a pure heart, how does that manifest? Well, we have to hear and we have to chant about Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We have to hear the messages of the Bhagavatam. We have to hear the messages of Bhagavad Gita. We have to relish in the association of devotees these messages of Krishna. Or else, how do we expect to have a pure heart, and how do we expect to be empowered? And at the present time, to become empowered, to have a pure heart, it is of the utmost importance for ourselves, and also just for our trying to propagate Krishna consciousness. Purity is the force, not money, not big buildings, not a big smile, not big tulsi beads, neck beads. Purity is the force. That's how Krishna consciousness is spread. It's not spread by different mundane formulas. And the symptom of, life minus God equals hell, equals chaos. And that's what's going on now in this world. But we don't have to be infected by that. And aside from us not being affected by that, by the raging flames of Kali Yuga, we could also try to assist people in giving them the process by which they're also not affected by it. And so much of having a Krishna conscious mentality, thinking, feeling, willing in a Krishna conscious way, and thinking, feeling, willing in a hellish way is just, or so much of just us existing like, for example, there's an example given. So there's all these people, they're sitting to have a big feast, right? All these wonderful things, right? Just you could think of all the wonderful things that you like. Like I know Vijay Prabhu, he likes avocado milk, and he likes anyways, it's not, some other things aren't coming to my mind right now, but granga potato. Anyways, he has a whole list of things he likes. And other devotees have things they like, right? Like Bhakti Alex likes chilies, Anyways. So just imagine all these wonderful preparations are there. And then there's all these people there, and then they're about to eat, right? And then they have their fork, and then they go to get some food, and then they can't exactly reach their mouth, right? Because they're chained, and the chain only goes so far, so they can't really reach their mouth. So it's suffering this way, like hell, right? Now the same scenario. There's all these people, and they got the favorite food and everything, and then they go to they can't reach their mouth either, right? But somehow or other, the chain allows them to reach the other person's mouth, right? And they're serving each other. Okay, here, take this samosa, or take this, They're feeding each other. It's the example, but heaven, right? So much of our experience of or people's experience of living in a hellish condition, or living in the spiritual world mentality, it's based on how we think. Based on how we think. But how we think, right, is based on our purity. from impure thoughts, or excuse me, from impure consciousness becomes impure thoughts, comes impure actions, comes, right, suffering, and then it's a whole vicious circle, right, of impurity going on. Impure or pure consciousness produces pure thoughts, pure activities, and happiness. So therefore, so much our acharyas, they're stressing the mental culture of Krishna consciousness, right? Becoming absorbed in Krishna, Guna, Rupa, Lila, Nam, the qualities, the pastimes, the activities. Pastimes, activities, same thing. The name of Krishna, right? And not only that, but in the Leela of the pure devotees of Krishna. This is also most important for us and for devotees in general. The pure Leela of Srila Prabhupada, which, by the way, that Juhu book, Damodar is bringing it today, for sure. It'll be here. So, which is a great glorification of Srila Prabhupada. So, all right, does anybody... So, we should try to purify our consciousness. There is a difference between impure and pure consciousness. We should try to purify our consciousness. We should try to help understand other people. We should understand the need. We should try to help other people understand the need and encourage them also. And in this way, we could try to do some service. There is a difference between this service and service also. It's like, I'll end on this last thing, but I read last night. Prabhupada said, I always, he said this in Germany when he was meeting with the German devotees. He said, I always tried my best to please Krishna. And he said, I wasn't like those servants in Calcutta who would drive to the local park, sleep all day, and they would come back to their master. You know, they're supposed to do errands or whatever they're supposed to be doing at the house or something. Then they'd come back to their master, and then the master or the boss would say, oh, well, how'd it go today? And then the servant or the person would say, yeah, it went great. I was busy serving you all day long, you know. Means he was sleeping, you know. So Prabhupada said I wasn't like that. So, anyways, does anybody have any questions or comments from the in-person devotees or those online? Tapas?
So I see there are 11 people watching right now, but I don't see any questions or comments.
Okay. All right. Okay, so tomorrow we will, Rajendrananda Prabhu will give the class on text 22, and then Vijay Prabhu on Friday. So we're having this new schedule because Dravida Prabhu is busy with the Vyasa Puja book. So he's busy editing, so eventually he'll be back on Wednesdays. But until then, it's a few of us and Bajranarayan Swami giving class. All right, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.